The condition affecting 1 in 10 Australians, with more than 700 million children and adults worldwide living with dyslexia. It's defined as a persistent difficulty with reading and spelling, a condition hampering one's ability to recognise letters and words. And it doesn't discriminate. Some of Hollywood's biggest stars live with dyslexia. From Jennifer Aniston to Tom Cruise, the late John Lennon, and even Albert Einstein. Now, a new book is set to change the way Aussie kids view dyslexia.
That book is called My Storee, and we're joined by its author and primary school teacher, Paul Russell, this morning. G'day, Paul.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Now, Paul, you have dyslexia yourself.
Yeah.
So, for those of us who aren't familiar or have never really experienced it, how do you define it? How do you explain it?
I think basically I just say it's having difficulty with reading and spelling.
Right.
And from my point of view, I had report cards my entire life that said, Paul has a great imagination, but needs to work on his spelling. And I have that blank look when people say, just pitch that word in your mind and tell me how to spell it. Because I don't picture words in my mind. It's not one of those things that I picture.
Right. So, because there are a lot of misconceptions, aren't there, about dyslexia? Just clear some of them up for us, because I think I was told that it's like when you see a letter, you see it in reverse or you see it backwards.
Yeah, and I think the biggest idea is that idea of turning your B's backwards and forwards and those sort of things, where I think the best way I had dyslexia described to me was it's right side of the brain dominant. So the creative side, the spatial side, interpret information, and the left side, the language side, takes longer to get it. And so in that slowing, it shows a whole stack of people in different ways that have trouble reading words. And so decoding words can be different. And every time a child with severe dyslexia sees a word, they break it up every time. They don't build up those sight words. And there's the perception that it's more common in boys than girls. And it's sort of, or that it's linked to intelligence and IQ. And it's one of those things where it really is just the language and just the spelling itself and reading the words, and it'll slow down reading, and all those other perceptions come in, and those children build up those blockers of not liking to read and not liking to write because they have that idea that it's so much harder.
Well, now, you've written this book, it's called My Storee, and you said it's autobiographical, yes?
Yeah, well, so My Storee was just my story, and Ashka was the illustrator who just brought it to life. But it was very much...
It's great illustrations.
Yeah, well,
it's beautiful.
I was the child who loved writing and passionately. Every time I had a chance, I would write. But if I handed it in at school, the teacher would hand it back with just all these corrections all over it, spelling and things. And so...
So your creative brain liked to tell stories, but you were being criticised for the spelling.
Well, it's just, I think teachers try to help. But if the creative side's there, they're trying to help, we'll fix the spelling on this, and we'll just have this mass of...
And you spelled some things here. Sorry to interrupt you, but you spelled some things here. I just wanted so people at home are going to pick this up and read it. It's like, for me, reading it, it's like you're writing things phonetically, like how they should be spelled.
Yeah.
As opposed to awake, A-W-A-K-E, you spelled it A-W-A-I-K. And that makes sense to me.
Well, part of the process of the book was the idea of you don't have to be able to spell to write. And it seemed hypocritical to then have a book that was spelt perfectly that showed this story.
Yeah.
And one of the things was we've found that with children with dyslexia and learning problems read the book, they have no trouble at all. They just read it straight through.
Of course.
Amazing.
Because they're sounding at each word, so the phonetic words are just as easy as other words.
That's fantastic. It's a great thing, Paul. We'd like to talk to you more. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but My Storee is available online from ekbooks.org.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done. Still to come.